Oh my god, this chapter was absolutely crazy. Sukuna is out here quite literally looking like the main character, and things just keep going from bad to worse. But we have lots to get into, so without any delay, let's just jump right into JJK chapter 253. So the chapter, to my surprise, kicks off with a flashback where we see Meimei, Nanami, Kusakabe, and Gojo all discussing who the strongest grade 1 sorcerer is. Meimei and Nanami both agree that Kusakabe is the strongest given the correct circumstances. Gojo even backs this up as well, saying it's probably Kusakabe, but would be a different story if they added in the big 3 clans. Which makes a ton of sense since we've seen characters who are technically classified higher than grade 1 like Naobito and Naoya, who I would say are stronger than Kusakabe. But there's still a lot about his character that we still don't know too much about, so it's hard to say who would ultimately win in an all-out fight between these characters. Additionally, I think there's been some hints towards the overall strength of Kusakabe, like in chapter 134, he blocks a point-blank maximum Uzumaki from Kenjaku. The evil sorcerer even states that it's certainly nice facing someone with a little know-how. So it's clear that he's incredibly strong, but I think that the depth of his strength still of course remains to be seen, which is incredibly exciting. But now jumping back into the fight between Maki and Sukuna, we see her duck under a slash from the King of Curses when the building that was cut from his most recent slash is about to fall on top of them. Then cars parked inside of the building begin to fall out, and Sukuna, using this to his advantage, plans on sending slashes through them to disorient Maki. However, she notices this but doesn't anticipate how much force the car itself was generating, getting hit with the impact of the car instead. And this just goes to completely show you that Sukuna loves to fight dirty and just reinforces that he'll do whatever it takes to win. In anime and manga, I think it's sometimes common to have a character from an older time period being an honorable and noble fighter, but Sukuna couldn't care less about any of that. Like we saw in the previous chapters with him slashing parts of buildings and sending them flying towards Maki, this man is quite literally chucking everything at the Jujutsu sorcerers. I'm looking at you, Fire Hydrant. I will never forget about you. Sukuna then grabs a hold of Maki and goes to attack her with a cleave, but then Ino jumps into the battle and attempts to attack Sukuna. Okay, so this is pretty hype seeing Ino enter the battlefield yet again. We saw in his original fight with Sukuna as Higuruma and Yuji were battling him that he was actually holding his own, and it's likely due to the training that he had done during the 1-month time skip. So seeing him back in action here was absolutely awesome. But this doesn't last for very long as Sukuna immediately sends slashes Ino's way and kicks him hard, sending him crashing through a window and flying away from the battlefield. Alright, so this was absolutely disheartening seeing Ino getting bodied so easily here by Sukuna, but he low-key served a great purpose, preventing Maki from either getting seriously damaged or even killed by Sukuna's point-blank cleave attack. Sukuna had mentioned in past chapters that the power of his slashes is directly proportional to how close he is to someone, so if he's able to make physical contact and slash you from point-blank range, I'm pretty confident that it would be an instant kill for most, if not all, of the top-tier Jujutsu sorcerers. But then Sukuna realizes that Ino didn't have Nanami's blunt weapon, which he had used to attack him before. That's when the legend himself, Kusakabe, comes in and attacks Sukuna with Nanami's ratio technique. You know, for as long as it's been since the death of Nanami, I really appreciate Gege including bits and pieces of him within the fights as an ode to his character. He was personally one of my favorite characters in the series and is someone who I believe truly embodied the essence of what it meant to be a Jujutsu sorcerer. But back to Kusakabe's attack, Sukuna tanks it since upon realizing that Ino no longer had the weapon, I suspect he readied himself for the surprise attack by reinforcing his body with more cursed energy. Maki, now re-entering the battlefield, thinks to herself that even if Yuta survives and heals himself from Sukuna's world-cutting slash, the battle is only going to get worse the more it's prolonged. That's why it's her goal to end the King of Curses right here and now. And this of course makes sense and also echoes the same commentary as Yuji when he and Yuta were fighting Sukuna. Everyone knows that they probably won't get a chance like this again to fight Sukuna when he's this weak, so it's basically a now or never situation if we're being honest. It's then when the narrator states that after the battle with Gojo had ended, Sukuna was entertained by Kashimo, Higuruma, and Yuta's talents, but it's actually Maki who he wanted to face the most. He was eager to face off against someone who had completely left the world of cursed energy and threw away all their jujutsu. Sukuna was itching at the opportunity to experience this reality. Then Maki slices off a pillar and kicks it towards Sukuna, but he instantly speed blitzes her and grabs her face, and the force of this throws them both off the building. It's then when Sukuna praises Maki, telling her that she's not like the other brat, referring to Yuji, and that she truly shaved off everything. She is the literal embodiment of true nothingness, referring to her cursed energy, of course. Wait, so this is actually incredibly interesting because it alludes to perhaps Yuji being some sort of hybrid between having cursed energy or extreme physical prowess. We know that Yuji is a physical freak, but could it be possible that he's capable of even greater heights by choosing one or potentially the other? What's also confusing and confused me about this statement is we really don't know the full limitations of how heavenly restrictions work. Is it something that you could potentially adjust your mindset to attain? My theory is that Sukuna is ultimately scared in some way about Yuji, or perhaps realizes some deeper potential in him, which is why he's constantly flaming him and putting up this front that he's worthless. But I don't know, what do you guys think? It's at this point where Maki realizes that Sukuna has stopped healing himself with reverse curse technique. So this could potentially hint towards him building cursed energy for a different attack, but whatever he's planning obviously remains to be seen, of course. But as his attack tears off a part of Maki's face, Sukuna shouts that this fight will determine which art is more worthy to polish. Will Jujutsu or the physical body reign supreme? He says that this is the first time that someone has bared this duty on me. So this basically confirms the fact that there weren't any people like this in the past when Sukuna was alive during the Heian period. And he almost treats this opportunity to represent Jujutsu itself and fight for why it's the supreme art form and power. We know that Sukuna will do anything he can to give himself the edge in battle, like modify his body, so I think he sees Maki as a direct threat towards the power he quite literally sacrificed everything for. Sukuna then states that Jujutsu is the skin and meat, while the body of Maki is the true bone and essence. Just painting an overall picture of the power system. Shouting at her, he excitedly states that her existence alone defies Jujutsu itself. And after stating all of this, Sukuna hits Maki with a black flash. Alright, so I think some of us had seen this coming, but maybe didn't want to fully accept it. I mean, he is the king of curses after all, so I think it was only a matter of time before we eventually saw the black sparks flying off of one of his attacks. Personally, I think Maki's body is durable enough to not be killed by this attack, but I think this panel solidifies the fact that we're not going to be seeing Maki for at least a little while. So after this moment, we pan over to Kusakabe, who's really the only one left on the battlefield at this point. He questions if he's actually the last person standing, looking around for Yuji and Choso. He mentions how if there was a 0 chance of victory, he would have already retreated, but he's come too far and has to fight Sukuna right now. So the chapter ends with a shakily resolved Kusakabe drawing his sword against the King of Curses, asking himself if he'll be the one to kill Ryomen Sukuna. This premise is so crazy, in fact, that even the editor is shook, saying, "What? For real?" So what an insane ending, and not one that I particularly expected, but nonetheless I'm super excited for what's next. Despite Sukuna having his main character moment, I'm hoping Kusakabe can find some way to test the King of Curses and believe he's a lot stronger than he initially lets on. But I guess we'll have to see what happens after the chapter break next week. What did you guys think of the chapter? What do you think the fate of Kusakabe will be? And do you think other sorcerers like Gojo and Yuta will need to return to remotely stand a chance here? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you haven't, be sure to check out my video on Sukuna's black box ability and what I think it actually may be. Thank you so much to the members of my channel. Your support is always and greatly appreciated. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Stay curious, anime fam. Peace.